HermitCraft. It's one of the biggest SMPs on the platform today, up there vying with the Dream SMP for the title of biggest survival multiplayer series, and has years of story and lore behind it. In the HermitCraft lore though, tensions are currently rising, with one of the biggest server-wide conflicts in HermitCraft history currently unfolding. So without further ado, I present to you why the Mycelium Resistance will win the war of HermitCraft. Before we start though, this video is part of a two-part series. Me and my friend Frost, or Frostbyte Freeman, are making a two-part video series where each of us argues for one side of the war, so after this video is done, make sure to check his out. Alright, let's get started. Why will the Resistance win the war? Well, I have quite a few discrete points as to why the Resistance will win, and the first is that, in essence, Scar is brainwashing the Hermits into working for HEP. Now, that's a pretty bold claim, but hear me out. HEP is not a new organization. In fact, the first time HEP was ever called in was way back in Season 5, when Iskal's Discalium factory malfunctioned, and they were called in to clean up the mess. Now, fast forward just one season to Season 6. We know that the HEP was around in this season since they were called in to clear up Scar's nuclear spaceship, but failed, meaning that Scar knew of HEP. In addition to this, Scar was a part of Concorp, an organization which was flagged up multiple times by HEP for their dumping of toxic waste into the shopping district, especially from their dead coral shop called Sad Coral. Basically, Scar has outright flouted and gone against the ideals of HEP in the past, and now is trying to lead it. In effect, the Hermits are following a man who barely believes in the organization he leads, whatever its message is, and eventually the HEP will wise up to the mayor's hypocrisy, which is sure to create rifts and internal conflict. Second, and perhaps more importantly, the Resistance has already managed to mislead the HEP. Impulse and Grian, recognizing that the Resistance was being spied on, have successfully deceived the HEP's intelligence agent, False, in the past, and done it with ease, where False was completely misled and deceived by Resistance, who predicted, planned for, and executed some extremely elaborate smoke and mirrors. Grian himself has managed to simply fly into a HEP meeting, easily gather more intelligence than False did while preparing and being alert, simply just by flying near their base. The HEP have tried to find the Resistance HQ, sure, but they've never found the real thing. The HEP consistently underestimates the Resistance, constantly expecting them to make the most simple of slip-ups and consistently slipping up themselves, getting caught in traps and other ploys. The Resistance calculates everything. Hell, they even revealed their own identities to the HEP just to trick them and to, well, send them a message. Etho, Impulse, Grian, Ren, they've all been found out by the HEP before. Their involvement is no secret, so the Resistance decided to use what they could and shock the HEP, trick them into thinking they had won a small battle and that they had found the base, and thus demoralize them when they realized that they hadn't. In essence, the Resistance held on to information for as long as it gave them a tactical advantage, and then used it tactically once again. With these tactics, the Resistance does well, but it's getting much stronger day by day for more than just this reason. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. HEP is getting more and more desperate for diamonds. Money, funds, moolah. No war effort can survive without it. As the Cinnabon shop sales slow down, with everyone getting all the netherite they could possibly need, as Scar is forced to take the diamonds off the trees to merely get by, the Resistance is thriving. They use the mayor's foolishness to line their already deep pockets with even more money taken directly from the HEP, even as they do well otherwise, with Ren and Grian securing the grand pies in the hedge games, Bard's mystery boxes being at an all-time high, with Impulse's totems being bought by the HEP themselves. The list of the ways that the Resistance is being lavishly bankrolled goes on. Sure, Corrales has diamonds, but that's not a constant income. His sales from Lucky at my bookie have decreased significantly as Hermits get their own villagers, and his office of diamond blocks will look rather bare after funding just one or two major battles. There is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare, sure Sun Tzu, but the Resistance can afford to go on for so much longer than the HEP because the Resistance has the means, the method to effectively place the HEP under siege. It has the means to bleed the Resistance dry, and bleeding it dry it is doing. There is no need for the Resistance to, for any reason, rush to end this war. Mycelium can be farmed, bases can be rebuilt, and perhaps the most important of all, the HEP can be tricked. Again, and again, and again. Because as I said earlier, no matter how alert the HEP are, no matter how many people go on the same foolish mission, the HEP fails. And the Resistance knows that it can and will stay one step ahead of the HEP at all times, that they can coordinate and plan to trick them, simply because they have that much more team coordination. Speaking of team coordination though, jealousy. It's a fickle thing. It can be a great motivator initially, but over time it corrupts. It eats and gnaws at your sanity as you see people getting rewards for something that you feel doesn't deserve it. And this is the story of BDoubleO. Although he recruited a lot, he did that while he was still in the early stage of jealousy, when it was just motivation to try and get Scar's attention. As the war gets longer and longer, hell, even now, more and more dissent emerges between Cub and BDoubleO over Scar's approval. Infighting and dissent has already started among the agents of HEP. The one-upmanship that might be a blessing now will very quickly and very easily turn into the curse of sabotage, intra-HEP sabotage to try and make themselves seem better in the eyes of the mayor. You see, the main problem the HEP has is that the resistance is, in effect, staging a coup. Though the plan which mentioned overthrowing Scar is a joke, let's look at the evidence here. First, the resistance is about sending a message to Scar. As they say so often, it's about the principle. So, like most coups in start, it's to try and gain power, sure, but to use that power to remake a country or a nation in your own image. To change the country because of a difference in core principles. Scar's one campaign promise, apart from cats and trees for all, was that he would replace all the mycelium in the district with grass, and this gives the message of the resistance that much more meaning and power, because it no longer has to conform to the mundane, singular goal of the mycelium look good. Instead, revolting against the mayor over a policy which quite literally got him elected implies dissent with the mayor himself, implies that the resistance is unhappy with the election results and no longer has the faith that democracy alone will restore it. So they're taking it into their own hands and they're staging a coup. Now, on its own, that point makes no sense. Who cares if the resistance is a coup? That has no implication on the story. Or at least, that's what you're probably thinking. And you'd be right, except for just one thing. In any other situation, you'd think that the mayor would easily crush the coup using tried and tested techniques to systematically split them up and, well, win. In any other situation, the leader of the HEP, the mayor of HermitCraft, would learn from history. Scar, however, has not done this. How can I make such a bold claim? How can I claim that the mayor of HermitCraft doesn't pay attention to history? Well, it's simple. The Mycelium buyback scheme. The scheme which blew up in Scar's face. Buyback schemes as an idea have always been tricky to execute, and Scar made a mistake that's so famous it's got its own separate name. The Cobra Effect. Basically, the Cobra Effect was named after an incident in India during the British rule. Worried about the number of cobras in New Delhi, the government issued a bounty on cobras, a buyback scheme if you will, which then promptly collapsed as people started breeding cobras for the reward, and then set them free and worsened the problem when the scheme was scrapped. Basically, this proves that Scar isn't learning from history since the Cobra Effect is well known and well associated with buyback schemes, but Scar still fell victim to it. And therefore, since we've come to the conclusion that Scar isn't learning from history and is also facing a coup, we can very easily infer just one thing. He'll fall into the same classic pitfalls and traps that so many rulers have before him, giving him a severe disadvantage in the war. Another really interesting point to note is the resistance is much more forward-thinking and innovative than the HEP. Using sheep and mushrooms to spread the mycelium completely blindsided the mayoral office, who were only then alerted to the possibility of warfare via mobs and responded with their wolves. Even then, the resistance pushes on and has innovated further to use llamas to kill the wolves, and all in all, the usage of mobs to fight the war not only indicates the innovative nature of the resistance, but also indicates their ability to react effectively, and their willingness to automate, their willingness to have agents fighting the good fight around the clock. And finally, the main reason the resistance will win the war, the real reason the HEP will lose, it's because of the message of the resistance, the reason they're fighting, the essence of the movement. Because that driving force is variable and can change for each member. Although Grian just wants war, that doesn't change the fact that, say, Ren is doing it for the environment, for Pamela, for...
Whoa. Cool your jets there, pal. And cool is, in fact, the key word. Hey, hi, hello there, how you doing? I'm Frostbyte Freeman, you know, the guy who Annie over here is so obsessed with. He made a whole video about a singular video of mine, and I take particular objection to that last bit. The nebulous philosophy of the Mycelium Resistance isn't going to be why it wins, it's going to be why it loses. See, with the exception of RenDog, the rest of the Resistance is essentially just spreading the spores and causing chaos for the sake of chaos alone. it's just for the lols. Their answer to the question of why is essentially just why not, meaning that their actual personal connection to their obfuscated set of principles is tenuous, to say the least. We've already seen it with Etho. His dedication to the cause is virtually non-existent. It's about the principle of the thing with resistance, but because they never explicitly defined the principle, to Etho, the principle of the resistance is to sell himself off to the highest bidder. The rest of the resistance has repeatedly abandoned any semblance of a coherent set of moral tenets too, harvesting an entirely new and untouched native mycelium island just for profit. And while that may have been a truly big-brain stonks play by Grian, it actually only serves to backfire on the resistance in the end, because this decision has only served to alienate them from the only member of their cause that actually cares about the resistance for genuine reasons. Which is, of course, Ren, due to his emotional connection to Pamela the Mushroom. And obviously, the fact that the resistance was willing to wantonly destroy a mycelium island without concern or care didn't sit very well with him, only serving to make the resistance's lack of a true ideology more of a divisive factor than ever. So, in conclusion, Rodo Ani? I think your ideas about the resistance's philosophy are fundamentally flawed, since the organization's lack of a true, central, defining philosophy is about to lose them the only member who actually had a philosophy in the first place. I rest my case.
I hate you.
I hate you.
That wasn't in the script. That wasn't in the script. Oh well, the point still stands. The message of the revolution is variable, which means that it can change for each member to mean that much more than a singular static message might have done. A message like stop the resistance or mycelium is bad, for example. The reason this message is so variable is because unlike the HEP, the resistance is about the principle. It's not a reactionary measure, it's a premeditated movement, thus ensuring that the resistance itself can have a variable message, but that the HEP can only have reactionary messages, effectively limiting the HEP and thus making it less stable. Sure, it's easy for the message to flip to a why not for each resistance member, but since they all have the common thread of the actions taken by the resistance, it becomes that much harder for them to flip to that why not. Let's take Etho for example, just as Frost did. You can see that he didn't expect the resistance to be the commitment that it has now become, that he thought it was just a joke. Yet he doesn't betray them. The quote-unquote information that Etho gives to Scar is always carefully crafted to be useless. Etho is using the resistance for profit, sure, and that means that he's much more invested in it. Now again, the obvious argument here would be to say that Etho will just leave the resistance once it's been milked dry. But here's my counterpoint. That just simply can't happen, because the resistance as a coup has near infinite profit potential. If Etho plans properly and supports the spread of mycelium, and thereby the resistance, he could spin a tremendous profit from it. A well-placed and prepared Shady Ease deal could more than easily use the mycelification of the shopping district to make tremendous amounts of diamonds and maybe even netherite for Etho. This, in conclusion, means that the resistance can easily shift their goalposts to boost morale, reach goals, and well, beat the HEP, because when there's no concrete message, you can set your own goals in a much more dynamic manner. And dynamism is in effect what will win this war for the resistance. And that's it guys, that's just my side of the debate on who will win HermitCraft's Mycelium War. If you enjoyed this or just absolutely disagree with everything I said, make sure to check out Frost's video linked here where he debates the other side of the argument, and make sure to keep an eye out for yours truly. Please do remember, in both of our videos we're not talking about the actual hermits, we're reading way too far into the characters they portray. Either way, if you want to see more of me, please consider following me on Twitter. I am extremely funny, believe me, why would I ever lie to you for clout and Twitter followers? As always, massive shout out to my channel members on screen now, and a verbal thank you to all of the wizard level members who are Lebron James, Ender Pekka, Thunderball 101, and Clouded Dreams. Anyway, I really do hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!